All right. Well, I just want to say up front that this is my first time doing anything like this. Um, what we're doing is a peer learning session, is what Jim and I have been calling it. So I'm here to basically answer your questions and get you started in Holochain application development as a means within the context of this group to understanding our approach to identity as a first step within the identity needed inside of Holochain, which we are calling DPKI, Distributed Public Key Infrastructure, which will allow users to be identified aside from their hardware devices, ultimately, so that if you do lose your key, or if you're on multiple devices or switch devices, you can carry your identification across those as a Holochain user, because inherently your public and private key are just generated for you the first time you run a Holochain instance and stored on your device, so it's fairly transparent to the user. And the DPKI layer will help bring some transparency to the user about their identification. And then the second step, once DPKI is kind of an implemented and agreed upon implementation, we can then bring that conversation into the greater, global identity discussion, cross blockchain, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's why it's particularly relevant to this group, and I think that's the genesis of why we got here today. So,
Raymond, do you want to share anything, any slides or anything? If you want to, just go ahead and do that. I stopped sharing the document.
Yeah, well, I think, in a sense of a peer learning, I didn't do a ton of preparation. I wanted this to be like an organized kind of flow with us. So I was guessing maybe we would start with just making sure everybody has Holochain installed.
We don't. Why don't we first do a round and see what people want to get out of this meeting?
Yeah, that sounds great.
And maybe a one-sentence introduction of people who don't know each other.
Yeah, I'll start. I'm Ray. I'm with Holochain. I've been with them about 6 months. I've been working on governance solutions for a new Earth. That solutions that will replace governments, corporations, small businesses, chess clubs. Everything is just a group of people getting together, and how do we come to agreements and work with each other with ease and grace, and bringing forth maximum co-creativity. And so I stumbled into Holochain because they claim to be solving the problems of blockchain that I was looking to use as the immutable data ledger that I would store all the governance ledger actions on. So anything that happened within a collective would get stored on a ledger somewhere. And I started looking at Ethereum and things like that, and I was just like, man, this is a bear. This is just and when I heard Holochain offering better solution, I checked into that, and little did I know that would lead me to being on the team. So now Holochain is integral to my governance solution, and just generally out here supporting the emergence of Holochain and all the layers that need to be built on top. Identity is a very critical layer, and that's how I ended up in this conversation. So thanks for having me here.
Kenny?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kenny Rowe. I work in the kind of the blockchain industry, I guess, if there is one. I'm also heavily involved with RChain, which Jim is also involved with. Recently heard about Holochain and was very interested in the tech. Sounds very familiar to a few other projects that I follow, namely Urbit, being kind of a distributed personal server, as well as things like Secure Scuttlebutt, which do kind of messaging and stuff like that. A kind of similar principles to blockchain, using cryptography to validate messages and sign things, but not necessarily with a immutable ledger. So interested to see what the group has here and what the tech looks like. Hey, Kit.
All right, who wants to go next? You want me to go, Jim? I'm Rao. I'm working with Jim on a few projects in the Holochain and DigiLife area, bring your own identity, cross-chain identity, and then social ledger and some of the governance activities. Hoping to learn about Holochain and see how that cross-chain identity might work between, say, Holochain and Holochain. Potentially at some point integrating the other projects like the social ledger and self-sovereign identity into that.
Gary?
Yes, I'm Gary Coulter, and in the channels I use the handle Odom Plodomo. And don't ask me why I chose it. It's just random syllables. I started in the cryptocurrency space with Scenario, and then followed Greg to and the people around Holochain to the Holochain project. I got interested because I could see that they were on the best path to solving things like the DAO hack and concurrency. And I'm way over my head in that area. And so I got interested in platforms and followed Jim Scarver over to Mattermost, where I learned about the social ledger and got real excited about that, joined the Digital Life Collective, and now I'm actively interested in Holochain. I tried to install it on Windows yesterday, understanding the problems with running it on Windows, and I think I ran into one of the predictable problems. But so that's what I'm doing. I'm a member of Holochain Co-op and the Digital Life Collective. And my screen freezes up a lot. Who's next?
Yeah, let's move along. John?
I'm a data science researcher. I look at the IT job market in the UK. Holochain has really got me intrigued. I'm a Go developer, so that gives me, I should be neck deep in it, but I'm not. So I'm quite excited about this meeting today, and I want to learn a lot more.
Awesome. Kit?
Hi, I'm based in the Netherlands, working in IT for 20-some years. I've always worked in startups, and I really enjoy the process. And right now, I'm advisor to a couple of startups. One of them is Holochain, where I'm more than just advising, I'm actively involved in the community. And I'm keeping an eye on Dig Life and Social Ledger. I'm not so actively involved. I have enough going on, but I think they're interesting projects. And now Holochain has perked my interest, so that's why I'm here today.
And Yigs J, do we know you? You're on mute. If you can't speak, you can type into the chat and let us know who you are. And you're a member of Holochain community, Yigs J, or what community do you come from? He says he can't talk today, but he's typing. Okay, from Telegram, where he's highly supportive. Very good. Welcome. And I think that covers.
No, Gurinder, I think we.
Oh, Gurinder.
Yeah.
Well, my name is Gurinder Johar. My background is largely enterprise network security, and I come into this space via Jim. Jim and I have been good friends for a number of years, and he's been telling me good stuff about Holochain, and I certainly have piqued my interest. And so I'm certainly interested in hearing more about it, and especially in any of the identity segue that you got. Just basically talk about what your requirements are in the identity space as well. Just trying to pick your brain on that.
Awesome. I guess most everybody knows me pretty well. Usually doesn't know me too well, but I come from a long line of projects in group systems, collective intelligence, financial systems, and communities like Scenario and Archain, Dig Life, and Holochain, now Holochain. So
so I think, Raymond, the floor is yours, but I would think you would need to install Holochain. We need Linux, I believe, right? You're muted.
There are instructions on GitHub how to install it both on Windows and Linux, but I don't think the Windows version currently is working.
It should be. Let's take a look at what your problems are, Gary. Hey, Philip. Philip, we just did intros. Philip is with the Holochain team, officially on board just very recently, but has been with us for like 8 months out in Australia, spreading the good word. You want to say anything else, Philip?
It's 5 o'clock in the morning.
The rest of these guys are all kind of, this group is an identity group. I think
as just the DPKI stuff.
It's related to DPKI, yes. In that, so these guys were, they had something. Jim, I think, started something called BYOID, Bring Your Own ID. So it's the idea that all these different identity solutions on different blockchains and all across all mediums, that we want to look for some kind of intercompatibility. And so the purpose of their group is to continue to explore that. And so obviously, Holochain would be a major contributor to that space. We would, at least I could speak for the group, that we would certainly like to be. And so that's kind of what this is about, both exploring DPKI internally in terms of solutions for Holochain, and then externally as we can integrate identity solution stuff for the global.
Right, and we're looking at putting the social ledger and process orchestration using Rolang, process calculus, employing that on Holochain. The social ledger is part of our identity solution in terms of you are what you do, as well as being an organizational tool for self-organizing communities and teams.
Cool.
Has anybody looked into the work that Tim Berners-Lee's been doing on the Solid project recently?
It's awesome stuff, and that provides the web ID and the OpenID provider, as well as a permissioned web store that makes the entire web your back end.
Yeah,
it's very cool, and we have had some work studies where we've run Solid some time ago, but we really need to get a separate working group exploring that solution, as well as another self-sovereign identity that's part of our Dig Life community, which is the HIE of 1 self-sovereign ID which is a single user identity provider.
Yep.
But we're in bring your own identity. We the web ID and your UPort blockchain identity, self-sovereign, and your sovereign.org identity. I don't know if you've looked into sovereign.org, and your Holochain identity will all be combined, linked in a unified identity that allows all of these identities to be interoperable and allow you to have multiple identities, which is really our first benchmark, is to have a united identity across all the different chat servers you're on, which is your chat ops environments, and your channels of communication, which are really part of the social ledger, and your tools like GitHub or Kanboard for task management, so that in essence your bots, or community bots and personal bots, can use this unified identity to act as you on these platforms, with the scope of permissions that you have available on those platforms. It's the idea that you're going to have a whole shitload of identities. It can't help it. You're going to have Facebook. You're going to have Google. You're going to have GitHub. You're going to have the Holochain Mattermost and the Dig Life Mattermost. But making that transparent is the goal.
Excellent.
Okay, so for everybody, there is a link here to the Holochain executables. It turns out Gary was trying to build, which is a fun experiment if that's something you guys want to do. But no need to build. We have executables for Mac OS, Ubuntu, and Windows on that link, on the releases link. So I guess probably that's the first step if you guys want to start building some apps and playing around, just to get it installed.
So after you download and extract those, what do? I see a directory with actual exes in there.
Okay. Let's see if everybody who wants to download and extract has been able to do that, or should we wait a minute, everybody?
Okay, well, the instructions here say install Go first.
Yes, you will definitely need Go.
You have to have Git installed. And then GNU 32 make. Wait a second. Wouldn't it be easier just to launch a Docker image?
Yeah, if we had one.
What's this Docker image?
Yeah, we do have one. The metacurrency Holochain Docker image is up to date.
Is it? Okay, great.
Hang on, I've got some instructions for that.
I'm at the Docker-based install.
Yeah, don't do that. Hang on a sec.
We didn't know we were supposed to try to install this first.
Well, that's what we're here to do. We'll peer learn together. Now we'll all know how to walk other people through installation, including me, apparently.
All right, so that first line will pull down the Docker image. The second one will run it. And once you've got the Docker image bash command up, you go into the bin for Go. And we'll initiate it with an email. So I'll just use that one. Is DPKI an app like Clutter?
It is.
So you can do a clone like that. So that would be clone DPKI.
Are you doing this now? Do you want to share your screen?
Oh, I've already got it running. So
Okay. Does someone
actually,
want to run their screen? Share their screen? I guess I can do it.
Yeah, I'm not doing Docker. I'm doing the Windows and Go methodology. I mean, I just have Go downloaded, and so maybe if you want to go through the Docker process, Jim, first, then I can do. We can go over the Windows methodology.
Yeah, well, I mean, we each can do our own thing. You know, we don't have to. We can see what issues there are in the different methods. You know, if people are trying different methods.
Correct.
In the GitHub repository, there's a compiled zip file that was just shown to us. So if you download that, there's 3 executables in there. You don't, I know I'm speaking out of turn here, but as a Go developer, I know you won't need Go. They will run on their own. So we
Thank
should
you
be
for the
ready to
clarification.
go with those. Pardon.
I guess that depends on whether we're going to develop in Go or not. I think most of our development of apps is going to be
Yes, correct.
JavaScript.
Yes. So the Holochain core itself is developed in Go. All of the applications we build in Holochain are JavaScript or Lisp, and that is we have something we call ribosomes, which allows us to insert virtual executable environments. And right now we're supporting JavaScript and Lisp, but almost everything so far is built exclusively in JavaScript. So we'll probably stick with that.
So I don't have to install Go right now, and then at some point I can be guided once I have those 3 executables what to do.
Yeah. Yes. Good clarification from John. Or you don't need Go, of course, once you have it, if you have an execute. So I guess as you successfully have it installed, you should be able to run HCDev init as instructed by Philip there. And so let's get everybody to that point, I think, as a first step. Everybody who's interested in getting there at least.
What do we do with HCDev init?
You can see in the chat, you can see the exact lines you want to type. HCDev init and your email address and quotes.
That's after I run the executable?
Yeah, once you've got everything unzipped.
Okay, but if I'm on Windows, do I do that?
Yes. Or if you're doing Docker, once you have your Docker container up and running.
Windows download, the zip download. Am I looking for things in the clutter subdirectory, or because the main directory only has hca-dev.exe and hca-admin.exe, and then I think hca.exe.
Yeah, I don't see it either.
You don't see what?
Hold on, I don't see. Oh, I see. It's HCDev init. Okay, I'm sorry. I need to learn to read.
Yeah, HCDev is the executable. The command.
Yeah.
The first parameter is init. Sorry. Thanks for
Gotcha.
Thanks for that.
I tried to run my Docker command line, and it wouldn't start up properly on Windows. I don't know why. So I'm using the Windows shell for Ubuntu and installing Docker there, as opposed to the regular Windows install of Docker, to see if that works.
Yeah, I mean, I have, Philip may have experience with successful Docker. Up till now, I've only known that it has either been out of date or people are having trouble with it. So you could just try the zip file if you want.
So just curious, Raymond, I download the zip file, I unpack it, I run the hcdev init /UI test at holochain.org. Is that the first command I need to run?
Well, yeah, but use your email address.
Oh, okay, got it. But I'm getting like a panic. I guess it's looking for /go. It does looks like a lib time, run times for go in /go. /go.
Okay.
Let me see if I got my.
Let's see, maybe. John, any ideas how to best get the runtime? Do we need to do a full Go install?
No, I've just run it and it's worked. It's generated a keeper. It does work.
Well, you've probably got the Go runtime because you've probably installed Go.
True. I'll try it on one that doesn't have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So worst case, yeah, you're going to have to install Go. I'm wondering if there isn't an easier method just to get the runtime. But
Go doesn't have a runtime. I'm quite confident about that one, but I will test it on a plain Windows PC now.
Okay, excellent.
I did the Docker pull metacurrency holochain, and I got an error message that says a whole lot of stuff, but basically it says the Docker daemon is not running. Warning, failed to get default registry endpoint from daemon.
If you're on Windows, maybe you have a service, a Docker service that needs to be started up.
Shouldn't be.
I know on my Mac I have my happy little whale that has to be running.
Let me try something.
Okay, so let's go ahead and put a couple other steps here for Rao, I guess. Anybody else who's gotten? Oh, okay, so somebody is. Okay. I don't know your name now, but you renamed yourself with your your Holochain agent hash, maybe. Yeah, let me run so one thing about HCDev, when you're running HCDev, you restart your chain from scratch every time you execute. Just so you're aware of that. I'll set up, I'll get an instance running and we can follow each other on Clutter.
I'm still going through the process here of installing. The might want to share your screen if anything. Whoever is trying this, I don't know if John's, you want to share your screen?
I've just fired up a Windows 10 instance, a blank one, and it doesn't run. So there is, and I've never seen that with Go. So I'm just looking at what this glycerin project does. It's got something to do with.
So if I'm getting an error, if I do hcdev init dash clone example clutter, it's telling me that clutter already exists. Should I just ignore that, or should I move?
Yes. Yeah. So Clutter does come with the version 001 release. So all you do is CD Clutter.
Okay. So, and then basically I do an init clone example db pki.
You can do that. Let's
Yeah,
Clutter first.
okay, got it. So I'm sorry, what do you want me to do at this point after the, to go into the clutter directory?
Yep, go CD Clutter.
Okay.
And then CD Clutter, and then HCDev Web.
Okay. So the clutter directory has the Docker files. Is that what we can use in the future?
I wouldn't know why that would be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not a problem. Let's just.
Okay.
Okay, copying chain. Got it.
Are there any instructions to installing the Windows version before I do the commands that Philip pasted in the chat?
Just bring down the zip file and unzip it.
Into a Windows directory.
I would put it in, call it Holochain or something.
Okay. So I got I mean, I'm running your the HCDev web. It's asking us to open up firewall ports. So what are we opening up? So I just have an idea.
Oh well, your node is going to start talk to the Bootstrap server, find other peers out there, other nodes running Clutter, and start direct peer-to-peer gossiping with those nodes.
Right. Any particular port, or is that?
The port's going to vary.
Okay.
Those compiled binaries, it's looking for a file, zoneinfo.zip, and that's why it won't run when Go isn't installed. I've never seen that before. There's an issue in GitHub. I've put into chat.
Yeah, I see that.
So it's a weird. I've never. So Go Gary is really easy to install on Windows, so you should be able to stick that in. And then
but I have Go installed.
And you still get the same error.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you install it at c:/go? Because that's what it's looking for. Make sure that in. Can you do a dir slash? See if it's going.
Oh, hold on. Yeah.
When you install Go Gary, there's usually two options for myself and for everybody. Install it for everybody.
Huh? How do I change?
No, you can do dir if you want. Slash. Yep. Okay. So is there? No, it's not. Right.
Yeah, that's it. Right?
Looks like it.
So I have c:/go there.
And run that again. What was the problem error you're getting? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. So if I do this, Docker pull metacurrency holochain.
No, but you're installing the executable, right? Holochain executable. You don't need to do pull for Docker then, right? You just run the hcdev.
Yeah, I'm not getting to the point where I run hcdev yet.
No, you can run it at this point, right? Where are you? Do pw and do your dir where you are. Okay, so go into the Holochain directory, cd, tab. You can do tab, Gary.
Now try it?
Yep, dir.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got it. So just run to hcdev and then knit with your email address.
HC
DEV. I think if you look in your chat, there should be hcdev space init space INIT. Yeah.
Oh, wait, where is the Zoom chat? I've lost the, oh, I've got it, don't I? I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stop sharing to figure out.
Okay, so the hash, is that a public hash? Is that where everybody knows this my node?
What was the question?
I'm sorry, I was asking when I ran the dev web, it came back with saying copying chain. And then it says serving holochain with DNA hash, blah. And is that basically the hash that everybody else knows me by?
Yes. That is the hash of the source code. Yes. So that's not your particular hash. No, your
Okay.
private and public key were generated for you and placed in your Holochain directory.
Okay. So every time I run hcdev web, do I get a new hash?
No, that is the DNA. If you change the source, you will get a new hash. That DNA is the hash of the source code.
Got it. All right.
That uniquely identifies the shared chain that you're going to be part of, called the distributed hash table.
So if you're running it in multiple directories, let's say alpha point one is its own directory, and then later on you run differently, you would still, how would that work? I mean, can you run multiple versions off the same PC, or is it actually taking the PC ID into consideration?
No, your private and public key are stored in your Holochain directory when you did the HC and knit, it generated.
Oh, where is it?
Okay, so I did complete the hcdev init, the first one with the email. So now I need to go do the clutter and the DPKI, I guess.
Well, yeah, clutter, if you did the zip file, clutter's already there. So just cd clutter and hcdev web, which you've already done that, it sounded like, right?
It's cdev web I did not do, but this last thing about it, cdev init clone example equals dpki, do I need to do that or no?
Yeah, if you want to pull down dpki, you can do that now, and we'll start. But I think since clutter is something we can all visually look at, probably looking at the source code and kind of exploring Holochain with clutter is ideal before we get into
so first you want me to go into the clutter directory.
Yeah.
And then do what?
hcdev space web.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So Ray, when I did the clone example with dbki, I got an error saying git. I guess it's looking for git. Init exec git.
Yeah, that's all it does. It just doesn't. You can it's almost just as easy to do the git clone yourself, but hcdev clone example will get you to do it. Git.
Got it.
Okay, so how many of us have clutter up and running so far? I know Kenny does, I do, Philip does.
So
I'm behind the 8 ball here.
Well, just to be clear, I mean, when you say running clutter, what is the behavior I should be seeing?
Okay, so you've done an hcdev web, and then it will tell you that it's serving on port 4141. So open up your browser, go to localhost :4141.
Got it.
I'm in clutter, but then when I do hcdev web, it says hcdev is not recognized. Or maybe my path is not good. It's not the path, perhaps.
You can do / hcdev.
There you go.
Okay. So let me use the handle. I should put your handle in, Ray.
Yeah, you first specify your handle.
Okay.
That your own handle, and then if you want to follow me, I'm Razor, Rayzer. Kenny Rowe is also on there. You can look at the chat and see a couple. And Philip is supposedly there, although I haven't been able to follow him yet.
When you run hcdev, doesn't that wipe your chain and you have to refollow?
Yeah, yes, that's correct. Every time you rerun, if you stop hcdev and you rerun it, it's going to start your source chain from scratch again. So you'll have to specify your handle and re-follow everybody.
All right, I'll follow you again.
Okay, now what it's telling me is that you seem to be behind an ad that does not speak UPnP. You will have to set up a port forwarding manually. This is configured to listen on port 6283. And then below that, it says serving Holochain with DNA hash, blah, blah, on port 4141.
Okay.
Do I need to set up the listening on 6283 part?
You would have to set up port forwarding. Apparently, are you at home or at the office?
Yeah, on my router, I need to do that.
Yeah, apparently you must have a fairly old router, I think.
Configured to listen on port 6283.
Yeah, so this is the classic NAT traversal problem where those people's home routers and firewalls obviously don't just allow any old connection to come into your home network. So a solution to that has been created called the UPnP standard, which allows a device behind the router to negotiate with the router to automatically have that port forwarding set up.
Mm-hmm.
And if your router does not support that protocol, then you have this issue. So obviously we're working on some ideas on how we can allow certain nodes to maybe be super nodes or something like that, and funnel proxy incoming connections for nodes that have this kind of trouble.
Has anybody got a handle I can try?
What's that, John?
In Clutter, has anybody got a handle I can try?
Yeah, we've got Razor and Kenny Rowe.
All right.
Kenny, Razor. I couldn't find Kenny Rowe. I'm typing at Kenny Rowe, right? At Kenny.
No, don't type at.
I'm sorry.
Do not type at.
Okay, got it. I tried both, I thought, but let's try it again.
No.
Kenny Rowe not found. It's the error in the console says HD query with no peers in routing table.
Okay.
Not found.
Are you on Windows?
Yep.
Okay.
Same for me, and I'm on Windows as well.
Okay. Let's. This is great because we almost never have this many Windows users. Almost everybody. When we have hackathons, everybody comes with their little MacBooks in tow. So.
Maybe in Windows 10 has got Bash, which is Ubuntu. Maybe we should try that because it will work then. I know it will.
Interesting. So it will run Ubuntu executables.
Yes.
Wow. That's cool.
So how do you get to that, John?
Go to. Bear with me a second. I'll come back to you, Raul.
Okay.
With the new version that came out in November time, the developer's anniversary, whatever edition, it's come out of beta and it's now a fully fledged product. But you do have to install it. If you do press your Windows, right-click the Windows button and apps and features, and then programs and features, turn Windows features on and off. I hope you're following me. I'm sorry about mine. And then in there, you should see what WYSI name have they given it now?
John, do you want to repeat that one more time, please?
Sure. Let me. Okay. I'm trying to keep track of Microsoft's marketing terms, but I've found it now. So in Windows, right-click the Windows button. The very first option is Apps and Features. That window that pops up, you should see on the right-hand side, Programs and Features. Click that under Related Settings.
It says apps and features. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
So when I click on apps and features on the right hand side, it says apps. Oh, I see what you mean. Extreme right.
Yes.
Programs and features. So that's different. All right, got it.
Click that one. Then on the left, you should see turn on Windows features on and off.
Right.
Okay.
Then in that list, it's under. I did find it before, but there's an obscure name. What would Microsoft pick?
There's one called Windows PowerShell.
Yeah,
no, it's not that one. It's not that one.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, whoever is typing, could they mute themselves, please? Thank you. Okay. Not the PowerShell, right?
Not the PowerShell. I'm sorry about this. I found it before and it's gone again. It's in that list somewhere. Where are the damn...
multi-point connector legacy.
This is crazy, isn't it?
Oh.
Windows subsystem for Linux. There we go. So it's...
Yep.
Oh, I see. Okay. Subsystem for Linux. All right.
and then you may need to reboot, and
Oh,
then
wow.
once it's installed, if you then hit the Windows button, and this time you have to search for Bash. It's not called Windows System for Linux. It's under Bash.
All right. I'll try that another time then.
What I'll also do, I've found a useful thing. It's just an addition to the registry. I'll paste it into the chat. What it allows you to do is in any folder within File Explorer, you can right-click and open the Bash terminal there. So you can always jump into Linux, whatever you're doing. And I do that day in, day out now. So it's almost working with Ubuntu, but using Windows.
Cool. I just migrated a few months ago from Windows, first time in my life, to from Ubuntu. So I've been having my challenges with Windows.
Oh, you can go back now.
I'm very happy.
Can I ask, why do you change directory to go bin and then run hcdev init?
That was on the Docker installation.
Oh.
So, guys, why don't we take a few more minutes to see? We have some people getting stuck. They're behind firewalls that don't support UPnP. We may have a Windows issue like we did this weekend. We weren't sure if it was Windows in general, where Windows is there's just something we're working on still with that. But either way, I think maybe at the top of the hour, we should start looking at the code. If that sounds okay.
So I'm not sure if I can follow you, Ray, but I just sent you a hello question mark. I'm not sure if he's got that.
On Twitter? Or I'm on Twitter?
No, on Twitter.
Okay, good. If you meow something in Clutter, everybody who's following you will see that. So I'll need to follow you.
Oh, okay. So I can't directly send it to you.
No, this is not. We do have a Holochat, but this is not that. This is the Twitter clone. This is the decentralized Twitter.
All right.
So what's your handle? I'll follow you.
GSJ.
GSJ. Okay, and when you ran off the command line, did you get any UPnP errors or anything like that?
I have to scroll back. I'm not sure. Let's see. When I did the HCDev web, you said, or in it?
When you did the HCDev web,
No.
what was the response? The initial responses?
Copying chain to .holochain dev directory.
Yep.
Serving holochain with DNA hash, and then it's just basically keeps echoing.
Oh, okay. Is it capitals? Your handle might be capitals.
Lowercase though, but you can try capital. I put in lowercase.
Okay. I am following Philip and Kenny successfully.
All right. Maybe should I just restart it and maybe do HCDev?
No, it sounds like you're running. Do you see any other? There should be a lot of stuff coming across console window where you ran it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically every time I send a message out, I get this 36 M links filled and blah with a lot of my hash and posts.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah, I can do that too.
Yeah, what it looks like for me and when you're successfully running. It looks like that.
Yeah, something I can show you what my screen looks like.
Okay. You can see if everybody wants to take a look, it might be a good time to transition into making some progress for those of us who do have it running, and if you guys are okay with that. But this will show you what it looks like when it is successfully running.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to just change it quickly. And if you see my screen where...
You do.
Okay. So if I were to just... If I'm trying to follow someone, and I would type RAYZER.
Yes.
Let's see what error we get. Okay, so it gets this holochain error. I don't know if you can see that right here. And in the clutter, I get arrays RAYZER not found.
Okay.
I can put @ in there if you need.
Nope, there is no @.
Okay, got it.
Philip happened to use an @ in his handle because that's part of his DJ name.
Okay, all right. And so I thought back and show you what initial screen was. Oops, come on, pause. Doesn't like to pause.
Oh, it keeps bumping you back down to the bottom?
Yeah, it doesn't like me. So.
Right. Okay, well, from what you read, you didn't get the UPnP error.
Nope. Seems like connected to the network, it's just somehow doesn't recognize.
Yeah, something's definitely going wrong. This is on Windows, okay? So those are your hello worlds, right?
Yeah, these are me just typing hello world, thought that I'm sending it to you.
Uh-huh.
So this is where I installed it initially. I did htdev init my email address.
Uh-huh.
Tried to do the PKI, but that failed. I guess I don't have a Git installed.
Right.
Clutter already exists, so I didn't bother with it. So I did CD clutter, and this is hcdev. Oh, sorry, hcdev.
Right.
This is
copying chain to users G_S_G.
That's my directory, local directory.
Okay.
So and then basically I did create. Oh, you know what? Maybe that's what it is.
Oh, you did @GSJ.
That's sorry. Okay, got it.
But you're still not successfully following me either, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there, but that's fine. I whenever you're ready to do the programming part, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'm not finding it. So you're definitely not finding peers. And
any way to do a status? Can I send it?
Not yet. So when every time those things that are happening on a time schedule are just querying the DHT for any more messages of any that are out there, and it's repeatedly just returning your own. So you're just in your own world. You're not talking to any other nodes, and so you have your own version of reality that does not include anybody else's.
I like that.
Yeah, it shows us something about the agent centricity. So there is this not this idea of like either you're connected to the network or not. It's just if you're not connected, then your application runs and you operate in your own world. And once you start connecting, you start to get information about other people's worlds as well. So that shows something key about the design here. Ignoring the question for a moment of why you're not talking to anybody else, you should be.
Okay.
But anytime you run an app, that's kind of what's happening. The app is fully functional. It's just that your view of the data is only yours. So has anybody taken a look at the source at all? And if you just go into the clutter directory, you'll see some folders and maybe we could start with some questions if anybody's gotten that far, or I can just start walking us through what we're looking at there. Okay.
I'm trying to set up the port forwarding. So it's looking for 6283 as the start and end port. And I enable both TCP and UDP on it.
Okay.
And the service name I'm calling Holo. And then why does it ask for server IP address?
That's your internal address of your workstation.
Okay. Is it required, or I can just leave it alone so that all the machines can receive it?
No, it doesn't work like that. So port forwarding you need to specify which internal.
Okay, so for each machine I want to run this on, I have to set up a separate port forward, I guess.
That's right, and there's a command line where each machine. See, this is only due to the fact that you don't have, well, two things. One, that you don't have a UPnP compatible router, and second, that we haven't dealt with this problem yet. So it will ultimately be transparent to you, and other peers in your application can choose to help you with that problem by allowing proxying for you.
I don't know if you can help me quick here. I have tried several methods of installing, and I guess I ran into some issues on Windows and with Docker. I installed Dockers on the Windows bash for Ubuntu, and it complained that I wasn't running the daemon. I installed Go, and I downloaded the Holochain, and
most problems with Go is because you didn't set your Go path.
Well, Go is working.
Okay. So what happens when you run htdev init?
htdev?
htdev init, space init, and space your email address.
Razor, that's his email address, or what?
Mm-hmm.
What was pasted in the chat?
Yeah, your own personal email address.
Now on this port forwarding, I have one other thing. What type of a service is it? It's asking Telnet, SSH, FTP, AIM, or other HTTP, PPP?
Am I supposed to be in the main directory, I guess?
Yeah, you're supposed to be in the directory you extracted the zip to. That would be other.
It'll be other, okay.
What? Oh. Let me, okay, so I do the htdev. Okay, and then I change directory to clutter. I'm sorry, I can't find these instructions clearly where they are. Where I'm supposed to follow them.
So you're in the folder with htdev executable, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then htdev space init.
I did. Jim Scarver. You see my screen?
Ah, yes. Okay, great. Okay.
So next I do.
Then go to CD clutter. And / HC dev space web.
I think his init failed because he didn't put double quotes around his Jim Scarver.
No, it looks okay.
Okay. Oh, you're using Jim at desktop then?
Yeah, I'm in Ubuntu. I don't need to check that sign.
Ah.
So
okay, got it.
HC for Holochain, Jim. HC dev.
I'm still in the old world of hypertext. Huh? HC dev.
Web.
What?
Web.
Web. Okay. And John got this to work in the Bash for Ubuntu, right? So this should work.
Hopefully. Oh, I see. That's what you're trying to do. So now this time I did not get the warning about port forwarding. So apparently that part worked. And then it's saying that it's serving. Oh, okay. Now I'm getting handle. It says handle. Invalidate. No,
okay.
Invalidate.
Okay, that's great. So go to your web browser, localhost, :4141.
Okay.
Both you and Jim should be ready to do that.
We go to localhost, :4141.
Okay. Yeah, I see set handle. So I set whatever handle I want here.
Yep. So
do we type the @ sign?
No.
Don't type.
I mean, you can. It's just that will be your handle with the @ sign in it.
You do or don't type in the @ sign?
You don't need to.
Oh, I see.
If you want your handle to have an @ sign in it, then you put an @ sign.
Okay. When I hit set handle, it doesn't do anything.
I think it will. Just give it a minute, Jim.
Okay. Sorry. I hit it twice. I hope that doesn't screw it up.
Okay, so it did take it. Now it says clutter, change handle, or follow somebody, and meow, it says.
Okay.
So I can put your handle. What was that, Ray?
Razor, RAYZER.
And then you have to do one at a time, or can you do comma and then others?
One at a time.
And the source code that you were talking about, that's clutter.js?
Yeah. Well, yes. There's the whole clutter folder is basically all the source code that makes up a Holochain app. So we can start taking a look at that. If you guys are ready.
And John, what's your handle? Or whoever else is on?
You've got Kenny Rowe.
And is that the whole thing? Kenny Rowe full?
One word. KENNYROWE.
Now, so when I click on the meow button, am I following or am I just pinging them?
Have you used Twitter?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so a meow is tweet. That's the equivalent of a tweet.
Okay, so did anybody get my messages? I'm curious.
Let's see here. Well, I have to follow you. What is your handle?
RB.
RB?
Yeah.
Two letters?
Yes.
Okay, I followed you, and one more minute, it'll probably come through. Yes, you tweeted Kenny Rowe, and you tweeted GSJ, and you tweeted Razor.
Right.
So that I guess I can't find you, Rao. So I guess I am in on my own world.
Oh yeah, when I tried to follow you, it says GSJ not found.
It should be try at GSJ.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, you're just not talking for one reason or another.
Okay, I can
No.
probably and if I restart it, hey,
If you don't support peer-to-peer connections, you're not going to be able to connect to another Holochain host because their peer-to-peer connections are not through a server.
Support peer-to-peer connections. I'm not sure what that means, Jim. Basically, if your firewall is allowing the UPnP to work, your node has a port listening that other peers can connect to on it, and you're going to go out and look for and connect to other peers directly as well. So the only level of support is basically, can your port be open to the public through your router or firewall?
I see. So
Now, for some reason, I'm not able to follow Kenny Rowe either.
Interesting. You put it. When I saw it, you had an E in there. Just KENNYROWE.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, that's probably what it is.
So you see my screen here. It hasn't. The set handle hasn't done anything.
All right, just go ahead and refresh your browser. Let's try it again.
Now, maybe that I clicked again.
hey Jim, just keep an eye on your console for any errors when you hit the set handle.
Ooh, I have the same problems. What's this? Links filled. Validate, commit handle, quit handle. What does this mean?
Well, you're just not coming. That call never comes back, huh? Your set handle.
I mean, I can see where I typed, where I submitted here. It said validate handle. It said links put. But then it said,
so your browser window is just sitting there. It never came back from the call.
right.
Okay, interesting.
So why don't we look at the source code and see if you can help us understand what's
I think
behind the scene.
But John, you got it to work with the Windows for Bash without any problem?
Not recommended. I've never had this happen to me before, but I got the blue screen of death twice. So what I'm trying now is VirtualBox running Ubuntu. I'm determined to get this to work. I'm not going to give up.
All right. Well,
Windows I couldn't get Windows to work barebone, and I couldn't get it to work in the Bash shell. Now, I wouldn't recommend other people give up, because it could be antivirus, it could be firewall things. So keep at it.
Yeah, the Windows.
So what would you guys like to do? I mean, like guys like Kenny, within the first 3 minutes, had it up and running and was tweeting, and then he's been sitting here for like an hour waiting for us to all do so. So I don't, do we want to try to get in to more about learning about Holochain, or do we want to use this time to support everybody in getting it up and running?
I think
I'm open.
Now, I thought if it was something simple, I could get on board, but go ahead.
I think we should go ahead with source code stuff that Ray, you were talking about.
Okay.
I do as well.
All right. Excellent.
Can Kenny share what operating system he's used just before you start, and then I'll be quiet?
I'm on a Mac.
Ah, there you see.
Yeah. We're definitely in accidentally Mac biased. There's no question about it. And Ubuntu, just non-Windows. No, I don't think anybody on the core team runs Windows as a primary operating system. However, you can see me being a .NET guy, I do have used Parallels on my Mac, and so I do run Windows 7, and I run Microsoft Code as my editor of choice. But yeah, I do everything on the Mac for the most part. So anyway, you're seeing my screen, everybody, I assume, yes?
Yes.
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 Yeah, let's look at some DNA.
Yeah. So this is your pretty standard folder structure for a Holochain app. You've got your app. It's actually the code specific stuff. You've got your DNA. We'll start there, which is your actually where all your code lives. I'm not in Clutter. No wonder. Wondering what I'm looking at is weird. Let's get to Clutter.
I see Abdi has joined. If you look in the
There we go.
What do you call it? The log document, you'll see the parts of the chat that you missed, and you can try to install this while learning about it.
Okay. Okay, so DNA is your where most of the action happens. Within DNA, you have your DNA.json, which tells you the things that Holochain needs to know about your app. You can give it a description. You can give it a universal ID if you want to do that. That's not particularly relevant right now, but it will be in the future for app evolution, app upgrade and forking kind of situations. And right now, your zomes, which is short for one of our, everything we're doing here is related to, since biomimicry is at the core of our design, we chose names that represent various levels of organic life. And so we call these things zomes, which are basically your record types. Or it's the application itself, really, more is a better description, and the set of record types from within your application. So within so this app is the zone we're creating is called Clutter. It's the description, and we're saying that we're going to use JavaScript as our execution environment. So whenever something happens in your app, a virtual machine is actually spun up, and your JavaScript is executed inside that virtual machine. So the main code file for this Clutter zone is clutter.js. Which we can see the zone name is Clutter, so then we have a Clutter directory, and inside that directory we have clutter.js. Okay? So any one app can have multiple zones, multiple sets. So these, I guess, looking for the right words to describe exactly what a zone is. It's more, I guess it's like a functional object within your app, I think is the best word for it, which kind of exposes its own methods and data types.
Ray, would this be similar to like an ABI in Ethereum land?
I think so. That's an instance of a contract, basically.
It's the interface? But it tells you how to interact with it.
Yeah, it roughly is. Yeah, definitely very close to something like that. Of course, this is not a contract that exists in some central ledger, right? This is just a set of source that, when hashed together, creates a DNA that allows other nodes to decide whether they want to talk to each other, because they're also talking that particular DNA language. So here we're defining our data types, essentially, the different types of entries that we can have. Entries that's in our local chain, and which will also move into the distributed hash table, which is the kind of the central ledger that we all share, called the distributed hash table. So these are the data type, the types of entries that can be posted those places. And some of this is going to be changing, but for now we have this data format of basically string. If the sharing is public, then this data can be written to the DHT. If the sharing is not public, then it's only going to be able to be written to your local chain, and we'll never attempt to share it to the DHT. So a handle is obviously something that's critical, a data type that's critical to our application, as well as post. post links and handle links and directory links. These are ways of storing essentially lists of things that hang off another entry. So this is a way of doing data referencing. So when a new handle comes on, we'll see later how we share that to our directory. We hang it off a primary entry, and each of the items hanging off that entry are one other user within, one other handle within the system. So as we're following other handles, we also have a list for that. So that's a link. And now here's our methods that we're exposing, essentially. These are things that you can call from the HTTP interface of the Holochain instance that is serving your application. There will be many ways ultimately that you can interact with that Holochain application, and kind of the way the world has embraced blockchain and the way blockchain interacts through a local client with an HTTP interface, we rolled out with that model as well. So through your HTTP interface to your local Holochain client, on port 4141, you can call these functions, these methods. So follow and add post and unfollow and post. So this is where your web browser, your UI that you've written, which is just HTML, which we'll take a look at here in a minute. It's all under the UI folder, standard HTML, JavaScript, CSS. And within the JavaScript of your user interface, your standard client-side JavaScript, you're going to initiate HTTP conversations with the Holochain client and executing any one of these methods. One of the things we needed to keep simple, because of the fact that we're allowing for multiple languages through the ribosomes so that you can have different execution environments, but yet have a standard external interface, is that we needed to boil everything down to just one parameter, one parameter going in and one return parameter coming back for each of your method calls. So that's why you won't see anything about parameters in there. So your parameter going in obviously can be an object with as many properties on that object, where you might be inclined to have multiple parameters. Instead, you pass one object with properties of all the parameters. You'll notice that some of these entry types are referring to a schema file. So we'll take a look at that quick. Anchor.json, which is also in your DNA folder under the Zome type clutter. All of this is within the Zome type clutter, so it's in the clutter directory. The anchor.json is doing some inherent validation for you. So anybody that attempts to commit this type of entry to the DHT, when that entry is shared with other nodes, a validation happens. The validation will always happen before other nodes agree to receive that entry into their version, their copy of the DHT. And every app is responsible to do its own custom validation. And that is a lot of times going to be app specific. So we'll get into how that works a little later, but this does some base data validation for you. At least checks your data types so that you don't have to do that at your application layer. Holochain will ensure that at least the format of the entry is proper before it accepts it into the DHT. Okay, and then let's see what else here's in the file. Okay, pretty good. So our UI is pretty standard stuff. Have your index.html. So when you connect on a port 4141 from a web browser, index.html gets served to the client. So this is your core user interface.
Yeah, Ray, we've also built a React UI for this as well, which we'll be porting over pretty soon.
Indeed. These guys are all old school. I get the impression, like me. We're not up to speed on all the latest stuff, all the latest fun in UI, which is really what React is what Facebook has shared as their they've made it open source, their user interface, which, if you ask me, is definitely revolutionary. So
yeah,
that
pretty cool.
It's becoming a standard. A lot of people are grabbing onto for user interface, and I'm a fan as well. So I'm all for this move towards React, and we are creating standard. A lot of the push we're having right now from this past hackathon weekend is really to get into React as our more standard method of showing people applications so that they can get a more advanced user interface out of the box. Anyway.
Apparently Vue.js is becoming very popular also. You guys have any plans to do anything with that or no?
Well, at Holochain core, we're agnostic with all that stuff, right? So you can write your user interface however you want with whatever tools you want, to the extent that it's client side. So if you want to use Vue, you can totally use Vue. Cloudera uses nothing, just HTML, CSS, JavaScript, which is great for just really basic implementation and demonstration purposes, I think. You can see, we're doing our basic stuff. We're grabbing some Bootstrap. We're doing jQuery. Pretty standard stuff there. So the part where Holochain comes in is here in our hc.js. Take a look at that. We're going to see that we're using jQuery to talk to our local Holochain instance. So we've got a generic function called send. Which is going to do a post to okay, so our /fn is relevant to our local path of localhost colon 4141. So so our Holochain client is serving us, acting as a basic web server and serving us our HTML, and then we can also call /fn, and then the zone name, and then the function name. And that causes the Holochain core to kick in and do its thing. And that happens in Cloudera.js. So when we call follow, we established an HTTP connection to our local Holochain client, and that the Holochain client implements a virtual machine and spins up Cloudera.js, looks for an exposed function called follow, and then runs this code. Now for the specifics of the documentation on these methods, these built-in Holochain methods like commit, I'll dig up a link for you here. Holochain, it's developer.holochain.org. Good portal to many resources. API reference. That's a good getting started link. I'll share in the chat window here. somehow. How do I do that while sharing my screen? I don't know. There we go. So the commit function actually commits something to your local chain, and if it's public, to the DHT, unless, yeah. Let's keep it simple for now.
Ray, is that what the exposure public in the JSON file before was about?
Yes. You can also specify in your commit whether you want it to be local chain only as well. I was going to skip that for now.
Okay.
So in this case, what we're committing are links. And again, links are a piece of data that hangs off an entry. You can think of an entry as a record if you want to relate it to old database schema technology. So an entry is is a record, and links are kind of things that hang off that record. That, in other words, they're like they would be in that world referenced records, right? So the base of our link is what is that record that we're going to hang it off of, the entry we're hanging it off of. And what we're hanging off of is the link. And then we have a context. What kind of data is this that we're hanging off? In this case, hanging off our own, hanging off the user that we're following. We're going to let them know that they have a follower. So we're going to hang something off their user record, their user entry. And we're going to hang off our own user entry. We're going to hang off their address to represent that we are following them. So this is the commit function. This is our entry type, is a follow. And the second parameter can just, based on what type you have specified in your DNA, the Holochain knows how to handle it. Your second parameter would either be just an object if you're just committing an entry alone. And if it's a link type, then it's going to be an object with a property links containing an array of links you want to commit to that entry. And an unfollow, you can see it's a very similar pattern. The only difference is we do a delete. With everything in Holochain world, things that are deleted can only be marked delete because it's part of a hash chain. So you cannot remove any entry from that hash chain without invalidating the entire chain that came after it. So there is no actual delete. There's no actual removal of data. So anything put into Holochain will exist out there in the world as long as one person is running an instance of that application. That data exists perpetuously. Is that a word? Okay. Post. First thing we're going to do is commit the post itself, which is passed into this function. So let's look at the UI where that happens. Go back over to the UI. Let's look at the index.html. Let's find our input button. Okay, here it is. Button type submit. On click add post. This is our meow button. On click add post. It's probably going to be in .ps. Add post. So this is a client-side function. It can get confusing sometimes because you're looking at both client-side and you're looking at Holochain-side code that are both JavaScript. And sometimes the same function names are perfectly relevant. So gets a little weird sometimes, but it all makes perfect sense. So this is the client-side ad post that we're calling directly out of our HTML. So it's creating a post object with message, with our message message text, and the stamp is the timestamp. Then we're clearing our message, and then we're calling Holochain to tell Holochain that this meow occurred. And again, that we're calling the send function, which is in holochain.js. Send function calls /fn/clutter with post, which instructs the Holochain instance to spin up a virtual machine. It knows that the ribosome type is JavaScript, so it spins up a JavaScript virtual machine of clutter.js and then calls post. So when you do a commit, we're saying the entry type is post, which we've defined in our DNA, and the actual post data is there. You're going to get back a hash of this object. So if you post the same exact post over and over and over with the same timestamp, which wouldn't happen through this user interface, but if you ever did, just post, commit the same data, you're going to get the same hash back every time, and it's not actually going to create a new entry. Then once we've committed that entry, we're going to commit links to it so we can find all the posts at a later time. And in this instance, again, we're using the pattern of committing things to our user entry in the which is me, which is get me, which is app key hash. There's some other patterns that can be followed. That does relate to identity. Okay. Ultimately, this can open the door to the identity discussion, in fact, if we want. Do we have any questions so far, though?
I have one question, Ray, on the back on the kind of those definition files that describe the types and everything.
Mm-hmm.
How are those generated?
Well, we actually do have a scaffolding application that generates these, but you just generate them by hand is the object, generally.
Okay. So, but if you did, so you could have mismatches between these, your source code and these types if you're not careful.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what you're asking.
Well, I'm just saying, like, so if I make a mistake here in this definition, and I call the data format a string, but it's really an integer.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Like an integer in my code, it might take me a while to figure out what the problem is, right?
It could. But you get used to it. I mean, it's a very common, when you create a new exposed function or a new entry type, it's very second nature immediately after to just know you have to put that in here.
Okay.
Yes, if you do have mismatches, that can bite you. Absolutely, no question about it. Yep. So I assume that generally makes sense to everybody. That gives you the general infrastructure of how this all works. And maybe we can spend the last little bit of time. I got to go at the top of the hour. I don't know if we set a specific amount of time, Jim, but I'm limited to 2 hours.
Ray, have you talked a little bit about storage at all? Where does this data live exactly?
So that you can read about. There's basically two concepts. There's your local chain and the distributed hash table.
Yeah.
Both are hash chains, as I was describing, which means that once data is committed, after, once a commit is made, all the data following it is based on the hash of that data, so you can't remove anything. It provides the immutability. So your local chain is your private data that nobody else in the world would ever know about. And the distributed hash table is a set of versions of the distributed hash table that each agent, each node knows exist. And it's another hash chain.
And is the hash typically a SHA-256?
I think so. We can read about that stuff.
Because I remember you mentioned earlier that one way the client or the nodes know in which to trust a given application from another node is that it's hash of its source code.
Yeah.
So you would any collisions in your hash algorithm could be very relevant at some point in the future. I think SHA-256 is pretty good at the moment, but collisions would be something to keep in mind.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we could switch methodologies or increase the hash size at some point. I think we're working at 256 has it pretty well covered for a long time.
For the extendable future, sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Are there any other kind of, just thinking of the world of crypto, and it's a fairly adversarial environment. That's one very kind of low attack surface I could think of. Are there other things that people should be aware of? I mean, if my node is hosting important information, valuable information to me or to the rest of the world, what are the possible gotchas that I might want to look out for when interacting with other peers?
So valuable data meaning private data.
Yeah.
Private data is an interesting question in this blockchain / holochain world, obviously, and generally is going to require an approach of the whole point is to share the data in a public ledger. So how do you keep private data in a public ledger is kind of a universal question, and I don't think it's too specific to holochain, but so there's lots of methodologies around that. Obviously some forms of encryptions, and then how do you share the keys? So that's definitely something that's an ongoing conversation with various groups within the holochain community and the blockchain community, I'd say.
Yeah. Any interest from your dev team on zero knowledge proofs, things like that, in order to prove things?
Yeah. I mean, there's I've heard that being talked about, and we totally. So the private data solutions is something we really need to start getting articles on about, out to the world, because for this to be in an application development environment that everybody can use for all purposes, we don't want to be in the position of saying, well, don't use Holochain for that. Right? We have spent some time in the early days, just saying, because we had a lot of skeptics coming at us, and we found ourselves, look, just don't use it for that, okay? We're trying to talk about something important here, an important fundamental change, and people wanted to knock it down. So that is not a unique discussion of Holochain, again. So
sure.
How do you store private data on a public ledger? Totally something that's up for exploration, and our team is very much engaged in that conversation. So is everybody here on the know about the Mattermost server, which is basically our open source Slack? We'll post a link there. I definitely invite you all to join the various conversations there. And that's if you're interested in continuing that conversation, Kenny, we could, I'll make sure we'll look around and make sure there's no existing rooms on that topic. And if not, we'll create something. Because
sure. I don't want to take too much. I just have one other question about apps. How do you, so from a user perspective, would there be a similar to like an app store type of thing where they could click on it would be a different user interface, maybe an app for apps where they could then, download the source code?
Yeah, we call it HCHC, the Holochain of Holochains.
Right. Okay.
And that's up in the repository.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
It's the GitHub. So there's two repositories. The Holochain core itself is under Metacurrency, github.com/metacurrency, and the Holochain applications are under github.com/holochain.
Got it.
And you'll see HCH.
I have a question if you've got time.
Sure.
If I was to explain to us a 9-year-old or elevator pitch, when we were setting up Clutter together, if it wasn't for Windows, we'd all be able to talk to each other. How did my Holochain client find your Holochain client?
It started with a bootstrap server. And that is not a necessary step, but it is convenient because it is, again, the whole point of for us is decentralization and distributed application design. So to have a bootstrap server is essentially one little step of centralization again. So ultimately, we do not require it, but that's the first thing that happens, is that when you spin up the app, it goes at the bootstrap server and provides the DNA to the bootstrap server and said, hey, who are the other nodes running this DNA?
So that's the Holochain equivalent of DNS.
You could say that.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
And if you knew the IP of other peers, you can just get involved. You can start talking that way. And once you know about one peer, part of the, the core peer-to-peer technology, libp2p is what we're using currently, but we may switch off of that. Is that you're going to start learning about the other peers. That node will share the other nodes, and you'll start having a pretty good view of the network pretty quick. So I guess I'll spend the last couple minutes trying to do my best to explain where identity ties into all this. So we pulled, let me see if I have DPKI, I'm not sure. Pull it down. So the DPKI folder is out there in GitHub. You guys saw where I got that. So DPKI, essentially, as we were talking initially, when you run that HC init, your public and private key are created and permanently stored in your Holochain folder. So if you were to lose your hard drive or delete that folder, all reference to your public and private key is gone. There'll probably some stuff hanging out there about your public key somewhere in various hashes, but your private key is gone permanently. So that obviously is a circumstance that can happen to people, and that's something that the blockchain world has to deal with. When you have a wallet with an address and a private key, if you lose that private key, your history. You cannot ever spend out of that wallet. So we need to get around that because obviously, I mean, it's kind of okay maybe in that environment where you're dealing with financial things, just keep your key safe. And if you understand that if you lose it, it's like losing your real wallet with your money in it. So that might be acceptable in that environment, but in an application development environment, we can't just have users going out there and doing weeks or months worth of interaction and data creation, and then one day just it's all gone. So DPKI aims to solve that by creating a layer of identification that is stored in the DHT of DPKI itself. So DPKI is its own application, its own Holochain application. Each Holochain application has its own DHT, unique, totally different, totally separated from every other DHT and every other application. So DPKI is essentially one of the ways that our application development framework pattern is unfolding is that many apps, through something called bridging, where an application can actually talk to another application. You would specify that when you run your app at the command line right now, and we'll come up with better ways of having the bridging happen. But if you have more than one app installed simultaneously at the command line, when you spin up an app, you can bridge it to other applications so that it can call zone functions in those other applications on those applications DHT. So you can essentially share data across applications. So in the instance of DPKI, we envision that as probably being a core application that almost every other application will bridge to retrieve information about the various users and have those users not be locked into the private public key pair that's generated when you do your HC init in case that gets lost. So taking the so essentially creating a layer between perhaps the hardware itself, or this instance of a holochain running on that hardware with that fixed public and private key with a key that identifies you as a person, that can follow you as a person, whether you're on different hardware devices, whether you, or in instances like where somebody else is actually serving your core instance for you, which there's plenty of possibilities of that, ways that will be happening. So it's essentially, if you guys are familiar with, I relate it to my best understanding. Again, I haven't written any of this DPKI code. But my best understanding of what it's doing is similar to the PGP signing of emails. So you have a public key infrastructure server that serves out. You can ask it, hey, I have this email address. What is their public key? And then when somebody sends an email that's encrypted with PGP, they encrypt it with their private key. And so based on their email address, you can receive that email that's encrypted. You can get their public key off this central directory server. And you can decrypt it and ensure that the sender was the one with the private key. So that central server where you query the public key based on the email address is essentially, I think, the technology that we're trying to replace, that we're trying to bring forth here with DPKI. So it'll be an application that's there to serve out public keys, the actual current public key, based on a permanent public key, a permanent hash. So I think it's the hash of your initial public key is what that is. I think that's the permanent identifier. Is the hash of your first public key becomes your permanent agent ID.
My understanding is that the DPKI allows for revocation and recovery of keys, so that they're not completely permanent.
That's correct. Exactly. Just like with the PGP environment, if you want to change your public key, you can go back to that directory and say, hey, I've changed my public key. Now, I don't know what their security around doing that is. I haven't looked into that. But yes, DPKI will allow you to essentially update your public key in the event that you lose it. And one of the ways we are envisioning that happening is through other user validation. So other users. So if you can go to your friends and say, "Hey, I lost my key. I need you to go in and acknowledge that I am me, and this is a valid. You're talking to me on the phone right now, so you know it's me, and you can acknowledge that yes, I have in fact lost my key. So associate a new public key with my permanent user identifier." Any questions about that? That is the goal of DPKI. So DPKI, it has obviously a lot of code written. I haven't spent a lot of time looking at it. When we meet with Eric on the 18th, which is coming up fast now. Wow. A little over a week. Eric's going to dig into all the details of how DPKI works currently and how it should work and what we're trying to do here. And from that discussion, we can bring that into the greater discussion of what is the best way to hook into global identity solutions.
Yeah, and in terms of the decentralized identifier standard, that provides service discovery, including the public key, authentication methods, authentication servers, and really, any behavior of the identity, which could be a person or could be any social object or anything on the Internet of Things has an identity. And we need to tie that in somehow with the DPKI system.
Yeah. I mean, and in some sense, so a lot of the times internally in the team, and once you kind of drink the Kool-Aid of Holochain, like I have, you have a hard time imagining why you would ever want to do anything in a different environment. So in some sense, you become that. And obviously there will be other people that have drank various Kool-Aids from various things, and we'll always have this question of interoperability. And so that brings forth the question of global IDs. But yeah, so internally in Holochain is really the first step to, I think, opening the conversation. And being that this is all an open source community, we invite all you guys to be part of that discussion and be part of creating this solution, especially as a means by which we can see how Holochain can serve the OpenID community and the Web 3, or the World Wide Web Consortium proposals, how we can serve that community, perhaps, and as well as how we can play with that community. I think there's actually two conversations to be had there. Perhaps there is a role for something like Holochain DPKI actually to serve the greater community. I guess, once you've swallowed the Kool-Aid, that's what you think about. So maybe that could be some core basis, being that we are an agent-centric solution that can really provide a core backbone for some of this stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you totally, but it will be a heterogeneous world. It's not going to be homogeneous, and that's what we have to do. Certainly in the transition, it will be that way, and our identities need to interoperate. I tried to buy some Holo or participate in the sale. I find you can't do it from America. But how soon will people be getting Holo so that Holo will be on the market?
The ICO opens Friday.
I think it opened today, I thought.
Well, whitelisting opened today.
Ah.
Or will open.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not open to U.S. residents.
That's correct. Sorry, guys. It's not our fault. It's the SEC. Donald Trump to put that, this is the first time in the history of the U.S. where the U.S. is being the one that's against the evolution of business, against the evolution of free markets doing what free markets do. The rest of the world is much more open to seeing this happen, and the U.S. is the one that's totally behind on it. So it's interesting.
Razor, I'm not I don't understand these ICOs, but couldn't they have allowed qualified investors who's have network or considered
accredited investors? Yes, if you're interested, if you have interest in investing in Holochain and you are an accredited investor, I can help you get involved in that conversation.
I see. Okay. Well, I didn't quite understand if there was some, no one in the U.S. could get involved, but yeah, it's just the SEC that we're worried about.
Yes, and we do have the ability If you establish a relationship with Holochain by participating in the crowdfund, certain things will open up to you as well. You might receive some communications around that. So I encourage everybody to participate. If you're interested in getting involved and see a reason you might want to hold currency, there are various ways to open the door to do that as a U.S. citizen by participating in the crowdfunding.
Okay.
As a first step.
The Indiegogo campaign.
Yeah, that's on Indiegogo. I'll give you the link to that.
Oh, this was incredibly informative, and you did a great job, Ray, of introducing us. Thank you so much, and we'll have lots of time to play around before we utilized all the stuff you showed us today and understand it.
Yeah, I hope you do. And I'm on call. Come into the Mattermost. I'm Razor there, like I am everywhere. Razor42 sometimes on Facebook and other. Feel free to LinkedIn and Facebook and all that stuff. I'm glad to answer questions anytime. And I got to run right now. I have another meeting.
Thank you. That was good. This was great.
Great, that Razor. Many thanks.
Appreciate that feedback. Blessings, everybody.
Okay, so next week, whoever is interested, come back, and same time, same place, and we'll try to share some knowledge about using Holochain for our DID directory and maybe other things. I was looking at Holochain as a potential place to do currency exchange, atomic exchange among the community, and as a test bed for stuff that will be targeted for our chain ultimately, using the actor model on Holochain, controlled by the process model of Rowline.
I think you can stop the recording now, Jim, right? Or you want to continue?